Hello.
How's it going? All right?
Not too bad, man.
Good.
Thank you for doing this.
Finally. So,
I know. Well, we were going to have James here, and he gaslighted both of us.
Standard. Cheers, James.
I know.
Cheers.
But no, really appreciate you doing this. Please introduce yourself, because there'll be a bunch of people that don't know who you are.
Yeah. No worries. I'm Andy Medcalf. I just got invited along to come and do this. So for those that don't know, I'm Sid's Jiu-Jitsu coach. I've been doing Jiu-Jitsu 16-ish years, something like that. Yeah, that's me really. I suppose that's why I'm here. So in terms of the rest of me and details and stuff, I've got a wife I've been with for 23 years. So Claire, obviously you know, sort of runs the gym and stuff with us. 4 kids, 20, 16, 11 and 9. And yeah, that's me really. I'm not really into these sort of things.
No,
you know what I mean? I'm like, oh,
that's why I appreciate
ask me a
you doing
question,
this so
tell me
much,
about
but-
yourself, and I'm like, oh fuck.
Like I said, bro, like, you know, the people that say that they have nothing to say usually have the most interesting stuff. I think that the most interesting thing is, obviously, I know you just like the last couple years, maybe like a year and a half besides COVID.
Is it that long? You're still not a blue belt, no?
I know, yeah. Well, I took a little hiatus.
Yeah.
I definitely like... Oh, that's another thing I want to get to later on.
Yeah,
it's
come to
crazy.
it.
But I'm really curious about how you got started in jiu-jitsu, and you're kind of like, well, now you're black belt. So take me from the white belt status when you're in my shoes kind of thing.
Yeah, I suppose for me, when I was younger, I used to like sort of the martial art type films. You know, it's sort of quite big. You had like blood sport and kickboxing and all that sort of stuff. So there's sort of a mild interest there, but never really sort of got into anything when I was younger. I wasn't really massive for sports, to be fair, in general. And then as you get older and stuff, so you want to get fit and healthy and things. And Claire and I had kids quite young, and we sort of made the decision quite early on that, okay, one of us will sort of go to work, one will stay at home. And I said to Claire, well, you look after the kids and I'll go to work. And going to the gym sort of early 20s and stuff, and then it just got a bit boring, you know. And it's like, although I'd go to the gym, I'd still smoke, I'd still drink, and it's like I was sort of a bit of a hobbyist more than anything. And I came home from work one day. I think I'd been working on the doors because it was quite late, and then I just flicked the TV on back in the UK, and then saw one of the early UFCs. Like most people, you know, it's like it starts with the UFC, and it's like, I know a lot of people that watch like UFC 1 and they're still going now. And I watched, I think it was Robbie Lawler and Tiki someone or other. And I thought, oh, this is going to be like WWF type stuff. And the next thing is just this massive knockout, and he started these tiny little gloves, and these other guys' heads bouncing off the floor. And I was like, oh, that looks good fun. Yeah, I was like, oh, I was hooked instantly, you know. And then I sat there for the next sort of 3 or 4 hours watching like a load of these sort of this UFC event. And then it's like, right, that's me. I want to do sort of MMA. Not so much jiu-jitsu at that stage. It's like, right, I want to do this. This looks good fun.
I feel like that's a common, at least from what I've seen when new people come in, that's like, especially the young guys, it's like, I just want to do the MMA thing.
Yeah, and it is, and you've got this perception that you look at it on the TV and it's like this sport, and you think like, oh, they've got a broken nose, but they've had fun, and and actually it hurts when you get hit in the face as well. And anyway, so I was looking around, and there was only where I was at the time, I think it was like 2005, 2006, and so I was like 25, and anyway, next thing, it's like there's one club that taught, and they had one lesson a week in where we were from Taunton, and then the other one was like an hour away, and that was it. There's no jiu-jitsu about at all. And even then, I think one of the instructors was like a blue belt, and the other one was a purple belt that you had to travel an hour for.
Yeah.
But it's like, right, I'm hooked, I'm in. So I swapped, literally going from the gym sort of 2-3 times a week to then just doing jiu-jitsu. And that was it. And then it's like I went along to the first session, and I was a little bit bigger at the time, and again just doing the weights and stuff, but super unfit. And I remember went in, and there's this guy, probably he must have been like 65 kilograms, something like that. And he just smashed me up. And at the time, like, I was working on the doors. I was quite sort of stock in. I thought I could handle myself, and this little guy just sort of messed me up in jiu-jitsu. And I came away, I was like, that's amazing, that's brilliant. And I literally just swapped one for the other. And I can still remember now, the first couple of weeks I started, my body was just in agony. it was just all my legs, my muscles hurt, sort of carrying my weight, just using different muscle groups. And I was just like, shit, this is for me. I was in. And then after that, sort of just did jiu-jitsu and sort of transitioned from the MMA into sort of full time with the grappling and stuff.
So when did you move? So when you first moved here, did you just open a gym straight away, or?
No. So what it was is we had a place in the UK. It's under like the Gracie Barra School and all that sort of thing. So I was a purple belt at the time, and I did it sort of under a head instructor. And when we moved to New Zealand, it's a big move, big shift for the family and stuff. And we're like, oh well, I won't teach. We'll just focus on work, and we'll have like a work-life balance, all this sort of stuff. And we started off just all it was. I just visit local clubs. So I went to a few around the area, and some clubs, like the timetable just didn't fit with my life. It's like with 4 kids and work, it's like I just couldn't get there for 4 o'clock. So that didn't really work. And I started going to a place in the city, and again really liked it, but again travel was a bit of a pain because of traffic. And then I just saw some mats on Trade Me for like $80 or something. I think it was for like 10 mats. So, and it's miles away. It's like on the North Shore somewhere. And I thought, oh, sorry, I'll just drive up and go and get them. And then Ryan and I, my oldest son, we just started training on the beach over at Little Bucklands Beach. Yeah. So like once or twice a week, a couple of mats in the car, just roll on the beach, and then a couple of people would come along. And I got an offer to teach just a couple of classes a week to cover someone's holiday, and it's for like a CrossFit type gym, just out in East Tamaki.
Like the jiu-jitsu?
Yeah. So what it was is there's a guy, I don't know who it was, but there's a brown belt that was teaching, and he's going back to the UK. Like, I don't know if his visa would run out or something or other. And the guy there, I spoke to him, and he's like, I just want to do 1 or 2 classes a week. And then I started doing that, and there was, do you know Alan, don't you? Alan,
yeah.
And there's Alan, Rogan, I think Jeremy. There's about 4 or 5 guys. Carl was another one, and they all.
Is Andrew in there as well?
No, he was one of the first ones of the new club as well. So it's a mix between doing 1 or 2 classes a week for this other place, and then a few mats on the beach, and then one of the neighbours came along as well, and Steve, Steve. Yeah. So, and it sort of was quite organic, and then the weather got a bit crap, and it sort of went into our garage. And then before we know it, it's like the garage was getting quite tight, and it's like you're rolling around on the floor and then trying to sort of smash people up. And then next thing someone's going into a wall, and it's just like, this isn't sustainable.
Yeah, it's not viable.
Yeah. So we're like, okay. And we saw a place just in Bucklands Beach, and Claire actually said, should we just open a place and just go for it? And it's like, well, it's quite big, because it's like going from a garage to 150 square meter place. But we said, sorry, we'll just go for it, because we can work it around us and the kids. And I really like the fact you can sort of grow up and train like with the kids. That for me was quite an appeal, because it's sort of time you don't get while they're on Xboxes and all that sort of stuff as well. So we just sort of took a leap of faith and said, oh, sorry, we'll just see how it goes, open a place. And took out like a 3-year lease on somewhere, and then just went from there. Just started posting loads of stuff on social media, and it just sort of grew organically. And then a few others came, like Andrew and some of the others came along, and Cody was one of the earlier members, and we're quite fortunate. We met like Josh and Rebecca and stuff as well, and he'd done wrestling for like 10 years, so that helped. It just sort of grew from there. So
I think that's one of the nicest things that I found. Like coming in as not really a new member anymore, but when I first came in, like the sense of community was the thing that made me stay. Because otherwise I would have been like, fuck this shit. Like I can't, because I'm not naturally like inclined to do this kind of thing. Like it was by luck that I managed to kind of decide to do it one day, and I just went and did it. Yeah,
and it's quite daunting, I think, and you do remember that sort of first time you go, because you're like looking around and you're like, oh, I'm just going to get beaten up, and like, especially sort of for people that have just seen it on the UFC, they've got this image that they're just going to get beaten about, and it's not actually like that. And I think going back to some of the earlier days when I trained, you'd go somewhere and there'd be no facilities. It's just in a warehouse, no toilet, no nothing. And sometimes you're traveling hours to get to this place. And I can remember I took Claire and the kids. There's a seminar I wanted to go to. There's a guy called Fernando Terre, and like Andre Galboa's instructor, I think, at the time. Anyway, so travelled miles to get there. And got there and turned up with Claire and the kids thinking like, oh, there'll be a sofa or there'll be like something because this academy is really nice. There just wasn't a lot there. Like there's, it's nice, don't get me wrong, really nice gym at the time and stuff as well, but it just wasn't suitable for families.
Yeah.
And I really liked sort of when we used to go on sort of holiday and stuff to the States, that it'd be like a family type environment, and it's like that was always the goal. It's like it'd be nice to have somewhere where you can go and it's like a family sport, because it is, it's just when it was in its infancy, certainly sort of early 2000s in the UK, it's like it was a garage or it was an industrial unit or it was wherever you could be, out of a squash court or something, so for us it's like, let's make it like family friendly, and I don't come across as that personable either. So I just look miserable as shit. I've just got one of these faces, whereas Claire, she's like bubbly, she's the extrovert, and she's always been the one that deals with people when they come in, so for me a new person comes in, how's it going? So I'm fine when I'm on the mat and I'm showing them stuff, but when it comes to actually just sort of the introductions and stuff, I think because sort of naturally an introvert and stuff, it's like, well, I'll leave that stuff to Claire. And it's quite nice because it's got that mix of just the grumpy old sod that teaches the classes and the bubbly person on reception.
It's like the classic kind of thing. Like husbands in the kitchen cooking and wives like front of house or whatever. Do you feel that like when you are on the mat and teaching, you can like kind of zone in, and like you said, you're naturally an introvert, but I feel like when you're taking class, it just happens so naturally for you. Because it would be hard teaching. Like when I've taught students music, sometimes I'm just like, just do it.
And I think you learn as you go. It's like anything, it's like when I was teaching as sort of a purple belt, you're still like an intermediate level, and you do make mistakes. Any instructor that says they haven't made a mistake teaching something, because you sort of, when you teach, you figure stuff out as you go as well. You're like, oh, that's not quite right, but that's what I've been doing. So you think when you get to like, I don't know, blue belt or purple belt, you've been doing it like 2, 3, 5 years. And you're like, I should know what I'm doing by now. And then you show it and it's like, that application doesn't work unless I just do this, this, and this. And then as time goes on, you just become more experienced at teaching. And I think, I always go in with sort of knowing what I'm going to teach. So, for example, I'll always have like a structure to it. So it'll always go sort of step 1, step 2, step 3. I won't just show a mix of positions that have got no relevance. So it's always like a chain of things. And then generally, like I'll tag that on over a period of time so that someone's got an idea of sort of what they're doing and how to advance to the next part and sort of break stuff down really. So that's what I like to do. And just going back to the actual thing about teaching, I mean, you do get classes, well, not so much at the minute because we've had the COVID stuff, but before sometimes there's like 50, 60 people on the mat. And it's a big class, and it's like you got all these people looking at you, and so you don't really give too much thought about it because you're just showing something on one person. So I don't really look around. I don't really pay too much attention to it. It's just I'm like, oh well, I'm here to sort of teach people and show them what I know for sort of their benefit, and that's sort of my approach to it really. So
I found that I'm curious as to know like how you or what your thought process is behind this. I feel that there are some people that I see at the gym, when we have when we train, not open mat, like just regular class, and you teach a technique, and somebody like Cody will always ask to see it one more time, and then he'll just kind of get it like that. Or someone like me, even though I've been there for like, I would say a decent amount of time now, I'm like, there's just some reason why I'm not. It just takes me a little bit longer to get it.
It depends what it is. It's like anything. Some things you look at, even for myself now, if I went to a seminar and I've got someone that's been doing it X amount of years or significant, like the Gordon Ryans that are significantly better, and you look at something, and I used to do it with my instructor as well, I'd look and I'm like, that's just not registered. And then you go to do it, and it just doesn't work.
Like, I don't know, for some reason, I'm just in my head. I'm just like, yeah, sweet, okay, I got that leg there, yada yada yada, roll, all good. And then I come to actually do it. I was like, I've just forgotten how my body.
Which way do I turn? Which way? And some things look really, really simple, and it's just like everything, It's like some things, whether it be life and stuff, or whether it be jiu-jitsu, you look at it and you think that should be a really easy thing to do. And then you go to do it and you're like, shit, actually, I need to see that again. And I think some people, whether it be Cody or whoever, sometimes you look at it and it's like, I haven't really got that. And then I think one of the differences with certain people is they'll look at something and they won't get it right, but they'll keep trying it until they do. Whereas someone that is slightly newer like yourself, although you've been doing it for a reasonable amount of time, you'll approach it and you'll try it once or twice. You may or may not get it, and then you'll come to like the sparring session at the end, and then it'll be completely abandoned. You'll go on to the next thing. Whereas if it's something that's you're like, okay, actually, I like this. This is going to fit my game or my structure. Then you continue to practice it until it works. And I think that's the difference. It's like they continue to apply it until it actually works for them.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're new, when you're a white belt or a blue belt or whatever, you sort of look at something, you're like, okay, cool, I've got that. You do it once and you've forgotten it, you've moved on to the next thing. And then it becomes about sort of repetition and stuff. And again, everyone's got a different way of learning. Some people need to physically do things, some people need to see things. And, it's how you learn, I suppose, as well.
I'm sure you've definitely developed in terms of like teaching different people. Like one size doesn't obviously fit all in terms of, like you just said, while some techniques will be easier for other people to understand and more difficult for other people to understand. You know what I mean? So how do you kind of deal with that?
So again, it's just in terms of like most things, some people are slightly larger, some people are slightly smaller. The ones I like teaching in general, when you get someone turn up that's either never lifted a weight in their life, not physically fit, not active, low confidence, or has some sort of stuff like mental health stuff they're dealing with. The ones that you teach like that then you really see thrive, like that's the ones that sort of lose a lot of weight and gain confidence. I really enjoy teaching those people because I think you've still got some people walking, they're naturally athletic, and it's like, here's another one, they're going to compete, they're going to go on and do it and stuff, but it's quite rewarding to do all that sort of stuff. And when you go to teach, and the thing is with jiu-jitsu, and I think when you're new, people don't realize like everyone can do it. It's like we've got Derek, I'm sure you won't mind me mentioning him. He's a lot older than me. I'm quite old, but look at him, and I think fair play to him, and you see it on the internet and stuff, and you've got all these people of different ages and shapes and sizes. And I think the most important thing is when you're showing something, is it going to work? So a lot of the stuff that I'll teach, it'll be basic jiu-jitsu, and then it becomes like advanced basic jiu-jitsu and stuff as well, and it's like applicable to most people. There's always more advanced stuff that you can do, but there's no point in teaching someone that's learning basics advanced stuff. And I think by the most part, by the time someone gets to purple belt or brown belt, they've got themselves into quite a good shape, and their movement's a lot better. They're then able to do more advanced techniques as a result of that as well. But yeah, you see it all the time. Someone's like, oh, this isn't working for me. It's like, well, just change it, make it work for you, because this is one of the unique things about the sport for me. It's like everyone's a different shape and size. So no role's ever the same, because you could be going against someone the same size that thinks differently. You could be going against a bigger guy, a smaller guy, or girl, whatever it may be. And it's just anyone can do it. And I think as long as they've got the right approach to learning, then it can be applied. So
I think that there's like a common misconception, and I've definitely had that, where if you're the same belt as somebody, that like let's say, like for example, I'm like I've got 2 tags on my belt, and then there's like somebody that doesn't have a tag on their belt, but they've trained for X amount of time, and they tap me. I think the misconception comes from the fact that I should always be beating this person.
Yeah, and you get that a lot. You get it. To be fair, you get it all the time. And I was speaking to someone going back a while, a guy that I was training with quite a bit, and he said to me, the thing is, like, as you progress, like for initially when you start, you don't start for a belt. You turn up just wanting to do jiu-jitsu, so why compare yourself to someone else? And it's the same with everything, you see it on social media and stuff, and it's like, why would you compare yourself to the next person? And you go through a process, and this is why it's such a hard sport and so many people drop off, because there's a big thing with ego, because no one wants to be beaten. And then it's even worse when you've got like a blue belt or a purple belt. And at that stage, they're quite competent. They can control their movements and stuff. And then you've got someone brand new that might be quite explosive or powerful, and they'll just literally squeeze their neck. And then all of a sudden you find they're tapping, and and they're like, that hurts their ego. They're like, oh well, I've been doing this for 5 years, and someone's just caught me in a headlock, and they quit. They just hang their belt up, and that's it. I'm gone. And it's like you're learning. Like every time you get beaten, you're learning. So in some ways, it's actually nice. Do you know what I mean? You just got to look at it differently. I think that's the main thing.
Like,
but I've been there myself. You know, it's like you get called by someone who's like, oh, Jesus.
I'm like experiencing it kind of now, and I had a talk about it with James. Like this new kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if I should say his name.
Yeah, no, I know who you mean. Yeah, I know who you mean.
He's just so quick. He's just like every ounce of like young testosterone and energy. It's like you can smell it off of him. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh, he's this kid. Like he's a lot smaller than me. For me, he just like yeets my legs across, takes my back, and just yanks my neck, and I'm just like, yeah, sweet, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, but again, why are you comparing yourself to that person? Because the whole point is like you're there to learn.
Yeah.
You know, so if someone's on day 1 or day 10,001, like you're learning, and it's for you, it's not for that person. Like as long as you're a considerate training partner and stuff, that's all we ask. It's like we don't have the typical rules, the typical. You know, some you've got a bow, you've got can I go and take a piss? It's like we're not like that, and it's like you want it to be like a relaxed learning. Fun thing. And if that kid taps you 20 times, every single time you're going to learn.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? So, and the thing is, even for me, like you go against someone like that or someone else, and it's like, okay, they're a bit quicker, or you know, so it's about what you do to make them react to go slower.
Like adaptation.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm sure you get that at black belt as well. Like there are going to be black belts even without stripes that are going to be at different levels than everyone, I guess, at that time.
Black belt, white belt and black belt are probably the worst out of all of them.
Yeah.
Because you've got guys that are white belts that never train in a gi, or sambo guys or whatever else. They've been grappling for years and years, and then they put on a gi and it's like, I'm a white belt. And it's like, actually, you've been grappling probably 10 years doing something else, or wrestling or so, you know. And then a black belt's even worse because you've got sort of your normal black belts. Then you've got competition black belts, and they're two different things really, because like realistically you've got some people that just they enjoy teaching, they don't enjoy the pressure of competition, they're not that competitive black belt. And then you've got like the world class full-time black belts, and again you've got like a massive deficit. And there's a guy that I used to train with, Luke Stella. I trained with him from blue belt really right through until we left the UK, and I used to absolutely love training with him, because even when I left, I mean, I was a brown belt for probably 2 or 3 years before I left for New Zealand. And if I passed his guard, it's like, I'm chuffed. Yeah. And it would be for a split second. It wouldn't even be for any amount of time. And if I rolled with him now, you know, I've been training for sort of 16, 17 years. And if I rolled with him now, it'd be like I've never rolled it for a day in my life. And I'm like, but it's good, it's humbling, you know, and it's nice to have that. And I think as long as you don't look too much into it, it's fine. People put too much emphasis on whether they've been beaten or this hurt or that hurt. And it's like, most times you don't pick up a lot of injuries, and a lot of the time if you do, it's because you haven't tapped quick enough because of your own ego. Yeah, you know, it's like so you learn either way, you know. So you're either learning from the moves you're learning, or just managing your own ego and all that sort of stuff as well, you know.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say something just on that and I've forgotten it. No, the ego thing's
it's massive. It's massive for
oh my
people.
Gosh, yeah.
It's massive. It's just like, it's that little thing. And even like, going back to your point about white belts, like you'll have someone that will be, you'll think you can beat, so you'll take it a little bit easy and you'll get caught. And it just, even if you're not that sort of person, just for a split second, you'll be like, that just pisses me off.
Yeah.
Because you're almost frustrated with yourself for making a mistake or something, or for doing that. And I suppose this is one of the things, you learn so much about yourself when you're doing it, because you're like, okay, cool, I've lost, I've made a mistake, but it's okay to make mistakes, because that's how you learn.
Yeah.
Essentially, you know, so.
No, yeah, that's, I think the hardest thing for, like, I don't know if it is for everyone. Like someone like Cody, for example, he's like pretty chill. Like when he wants to have a chill roll, he'll just, and I know it in my head, which is kind of more embarrassing for me, I think, when I just know that he's let me pass his guard, and he's the same when I roll with you as well. When you let me pass your guard, or like when you let me, you know,
get inside control. So why do we do that?
I guess you do have to learn how to be in those positions as well.
Like, essentially, when you're new, you don't want to be in a bad position, But when you've been in that position that's bad for so long, it's just a different situation you find yourself in.
Yeah.
You know, so whether it be Cody or whether it be somebody, he's going to get reference loads. I'll get to the gym, I'll smash him up later as well. I'm like, come on, I'm coming for you. No, just in terms of like with Cody, and not just Cody, but a lot of other people, what tends to happen is they'll, especially as you become more experienced, they'll roll to the level of the person they're rolling with, and they'll use that opportunity as a time to put themselves in a more uncomfortable situation. So like Cody isn't necessarily going to want to be sort of inside control with me, but he might be like, oh, it's Sid. I'll let him pass. I'll work my way out of it. And I'll use that opportunity to then fix something that I can't do against someone that's more advanced. You know what I mean? So that's why. And for me, it's like, if there's no point in me just picking on Sid or picking on... I do anyway now and again, but no. But there's no point in me literally just smashing through you.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I've not learned anything. I've been hurt. It's just... shit. So it makes more sense. So what I tend to do when I roll with people, I'll always try and just spar with them sort of one level above where they are. So if they're a white belt, I'll roll sort of, if they're experienced, I'll roll at sort of blue belt. If I've got blue belt, I'll roll at purple. So they're always having to struggle that little bit more, but they're still progressing and stuff as well. So like, I'll let the new person take my back, because who cares if I get tapped? It doesn't matter. I've let them move and learn stuff and figure it out. And the biggest thing, and again, it's going to the ego thing, like what difference does it make if a brand new person, I let them take my back, secure a position, and they choke me, I tap. There's no damage done. There's no nothing.
It's not that deep.
Yeah, and he might think in his mind, oh yeah, I've just beaten the black belt. I mean, to be fair, it's not going to happen like 9 times out of 10, you know, unless it's a freak situation. But there's no point in me just destroying someone. And it's the same as you become more experienced. It's like, whether it be work or anything, it's like there's no point in throwing someone in the deep end and watching them sink. So.
Yeah. I feel like there's a time and place for both of those things, because whenever I roll with someone like James, for example, he does not let me off the hook at all. I don't think he's never gone, even on my first day. He's never let me off at all. And I always end up rolling with him first.
Yeah, because he seeks you out. He's like, where's Sid? James is like,
so we always park up together, and he's my mate as well, so I feel bad if I'm just like, I don't want to roll with you today.
Yeah, but then the thing is, like, realistically, and I know you guys have spoken about it before previously, but how good is it going to be if you can get to a point where you can like get past him, you know? Because then by the flip side, if he's trying to smash all the time, if you've just got a process and like approach to it where you're just looking at what he does and how he's beating you, and then you focus on what you're doing, essentially you could overtake him.
Yeah.
So
I don't know, one day.
But you did catch him in a triangle.
Yeah, I did. Old purple belt slayer, this guy.
Yeah. No, it doesn't matter though. It just like, when it's friends, there's always that more competitive rivalry, you know. So I remember talking of rivalries and stuff in the UK. There's again, it's sort of earlier days of jiu-jitsu and stuff as well. I used to have this guy that worked for me as a security guard, and a guy called Mike, and he's a big lump. I mean, just massive. He's probably about 130 kilograms. Lives in the gym. He's probably out of breath walking up the stairs. You know what I mean? But just extremely explosive and powerful and stuff. And I just walk around like normalish guy, and he's always got. He's like, I could fuck you up and all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, look, just you're dreaming. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And again, back in the UK, we had some mats in the garage and stuff, and he came over, and it's like 1,000 miles an hour to try and beat me. And for about 30 seconds or so, you're weathering a bit of a storm because he's so strong.
Yeah.
And then after that, you can hear he's like, and you're like, and the thing is, like, you go to armbar them and stuff, and then like extend their elbow, and you can't even do that because they're just sort of curling the and you're like, oh, I'll just choke them. Because the thing is, it doesn't matter if they go to the gym because their neck's not going to make any difference. And you do get, and then you become rivals, you know, as friends and stuff. And he actually went on to train quite a bit. It got to like blue belt and stuff as well, and he'd always be like, I'm gonna fuck you up. every time, like, you know, like every roll, it wasn't gonna be an easy roll for just for 60 seconds. Then after that, you're like, oh, it's easy, man, it's nice. But again, you get the friendly rivalries, but I think that's a good thing because I think it pushes you to get better and stuff, you know. So yeah, it's good.
There are times where it is definitely demoralizing though. But I think
but why is it demoralizing?
because he's just so heavy and fat James, and he just sits on me. And then he does the thing where he just like covers my mouth, and I was like, I'm not going to tap, but I can't breathe.
I do that to him, to be fair. So I see him doing it. I see him. You see people do certain things. You're like, oh, I'll show you what that's like as well.
But I wouldn't change. I think I don't know. I look at it, like my experience with jiu-jitsu. It's been a really long time since I've had to learn something completely new from scratch, like being thrown in the deep end. When I started learning music, it was like that because I just didn't know anything, and I had to go to rehearsal and like learn music, and I was just kind of like learning via osmosis through the person next to me. I was like, I don't know why I'm here. This is terrible. And I didn't know what flat was. I didn't know what sharp was. I didn't know what any notes were. And then obviously now it's different, but I've kind of grown to that. I was like, oh, this is kind of pottering along for me. And I don't have any self-defense. I don't have, I went to the gym for a little bit, but not enough to be in good shape. And I was like, I might as well just start, doing MMA because I was like a big fan of the UFC, the classic.
Yeah, it's the same thing. All the time UFC, it's just, you look at it, you're like, oh, cool. So it is growing. It's the popularity is growing massively, and it's like anything, anything that you put time into, you're going to become proficient with, and whether it be music or jiu-jitsu, it's like, I think if you find something that's like that you're passionate about, you put effort into it, and you find stuff out, whether it be about notes or moves or anything else.
I just think it's completely changed, like the way that I look at music, like things like, the last session that I came to, you're like, just don't mentally give up. That's it. Like you're fine physically, just you're mentally giving up. It's like now I kind of look at some pieces of music that I think are too hard. I was like, oh, what if I just
and I
keep going through it? It's like these little things in jiu-jitsu that come up, these little like bits of gold that you managed to.
The thing is, for me, I mean, it just it's helped me so much in lots of different ways, and I think the realization when you do something that difficult, it's like it's okay to fail, and I think the thing is, especially in modern day society, there's like people are afraid of making mistakes. They're afraid of making themselves look stupid and all that sort of stuff as well, and it's the same as it's okay to tap, it's okay to do something, but I think it's more important just to give it a go. And I think like to not try something because it's too hard or it's too challenging and all that sort of stuff. And I suppose one of the things I've learned, like through the amount of time I've been doing the jiu-jitsu, it's like it's just turning up, it's just having a go and not being afraid to fail. I think that's the biggest thing. And I think sometimes you look at a situation, you think, oh, I'm not going to be able to do that. And you don't even try. You're like, I'm not going to bother because of whatever excuse you're going to make. And I think it's a bit sad, really. I think it's good, some of the tools that you get from doing a sport that's like jiu-jitsu, there's so much to it. You benefit from the sort of physical stuff, but also mentally, it just gives you a different approach to how you do things, and just not caring about making mistakes and stuff. So, well, obviously you care that you've not done as well as you could do, but it's that approach of like, okay, well, actually, I haven't done as well as I can, but if I keep going, I'm going to get better,
One of the things that I love about it, like, especially when we roll, when you go to the gym, you still end up thinking about what's going on in your day or other things, because you kind of just do the reps and then you rest and you're like thinking. It kind of becomes it's becomes systematic in a way. But like if you are in your head when you roll with somebody, you're just gonna get choked out. I think that's the thing that's really been great for me. I'm sure for a bunch of other people, like when you roll, like you have to be there in the moment.
And I've read somewhere, whether it's, again, I don't know whether it's sort of fact or fiction type thing. You see it on the internet, you never know what's true or not these days, but I did read there's some studies done on it, and it's very much like a fight or flight type thing, because the situations you're in, your body is only focusing on that survival thing. So if someone has a choke and it's extremely tight, your body essentially it sort of switches off to just what you're doing at that moment. And I think that's one of the things that's been good for me over the years is like you can have a really shit day and you can turn up and you can go to jiu-jitsu and you can't be bothered. The good thing is if you turn up to jiu-jitsu and you can't be bothered, there's always someone that's like, I've had a day off, I'm ready to smash someone up. I'm like really looking forward to today's session, or I want to be a pro MMA fighter, or whatever it may be. And they just want to tear your head off. And you're like, I cannot be arsed with this today. And then you got someone that's from their tear your head off at 1,000 miles an hour. You're like, actually, you've forgotten your day because you've got to focus on just what you're doing. And you walk away after and you're like, oh, cool. Yeah, I feel quite good today.
Yeah.
I'm glad I went. I'm glad I did that today and I got through today's session. It's just turning up. That's what it is.
I think that's like one thing that I've prided myself on that I've kind of kept going. Because you realize even with my like little hiatus when I was like, I didn't think I want to do this as much anymore. I started getting, I don't know if I talked about this last time with James, but I was like getting withdrawals. I was like, just going to the gym just isn't enough anymore.
It's not the same, yeah.
No, I was like, so no, I don't know. Even though I don't feel like I'm as good as I probably should be, which we'll get into with this next thing. But I don't know. I feel like I need it. And when I, end up going overseas for whatever thing that I end up doing, I definitely want to keep this going because I think it's beneficial for everyone.
Oh, to be fair, one of the things I've loved about it, actually, just the community to it as well.
Yeah.
Because like with jiu-jitsu, I don't think it's like any other sport, If you're to play football, you couldn't just turn up and play football with David Beckham, Whereas with jiu-jitsu, you can just rock up to any gym.
Yeah.
And you'll have world famous people there in the jiu-jitsu world. And it's like, you can just train with them like normal people. And you just don't get that.
Yeah.
And not only that, like if you go on... It used to get on Claire's tits, but she'd be like, yeah, you had to. When we used to go on like family holidays and stuff, we used to go to like Florida and stuff, and we'd turn up and go for 2 weeks, and I'm like, I can't go. I'm not going to be able to go 2 weeks without training.
Yeah.
So I'd always, normally once, just in the middle of the holiday, I'm like, oh babe, do you mind if I'll just be like an hour, maybe 2 tops? And she's like, yeah. Okay, go. And do you know what I mean? Because you're on holiday, and I think it's when you're on a break and stuff. But the thing is, when you go to like a club there, you get a true feel of what the place is like, whether it be America or anywhere else, because it's actually just normal, everyday people. It's not like your touristy stuff that you go and see while you're on holiday.
Yeah.
Like, and everyone's like, oh, where are you from? And it's just, everyone's relaxed and you train. And it's almost like you make friends instantly, and there's people I know over in the US and stuff as well that I'm still in touch with now, just solely through jiu-jitsu. And they've got like a Globetrotters jiu-jitsu. I don't know if you've seen it, Globetrotters jiu-jitsu. And again, it's very much about a guy that's doing like the sort of going around, he's staying in different countries, just staying on someone's sofa in exchange for teaching jiu-jitsu.
Oh, crazy.
And as a result of that, there's like this page, and I'll send it to you later, and he wrote a book and stuff, and he's just going to all these different countries and just sleeping on people's sofas and stuff, because you just rock up and you're like, oh, can
I teach you jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, and it is, and like you can literally just go anywhere. And you could say, oh, I'm visiting white belt or blue belt or whatever. Is it okay to come and train? Like, yep, come along. And like 9 times out of 10, like depending on where you go, they won't charge you and stuff, and you're welcomed with open arms. And you get like a proper feel of like a place. So to have it as part of like travel and stuff is really good, because you get to meet new people and they can recommend where to go and all that sort of stuff as well. So it's pretty cool.
Oh, that is cool. Okay, now just off what I said before, of like I don't feel like I'm as good as where I think I should be for how long I've been doing this. The belt system. I think I've just heard too many different definitions of what the belts are.
Yeah.
And I've had so many conversations with James about one of my things is, before I head overseas for whatever study I end up doing, I would just want to get my blue belt. And that's it. He was like, why? Like, why should that matter to you? Because you're just going to keep improving slowly. I was like, for some reason, I just want the belt.
Yeah.
So talk to me about the importance of belts, and just kind of like, how do you define each level of belt?
Yeah, I think for me, I understand where you're coming from, because the thing for me, I was like, similar to yourself, like when you're a white belt, and you're having a conversation with people as well. You don't care when you start jiu-jitsu. You turn up, and same with the UFC stuff. You watch and you're like, oh, you don't see them with their belts on necessarily. So you're like, who cares? Belts don't matter. But you go along, and then you've got this new exciting hobby you're telling everyone about, and then you go and speak to a neighbour, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm doing jiu-jitsu, and oh, what belt are you? You're like, I'm a white belt. How long have you been doing it? Like, 2 years, 3 years. And I think just because there's that whole thing with some of the other martial arts where you get belts quite quickly, and you can be a black belt in 2 years or whatever it may be. It's like, oh yeah, well, my neighbour, well, my cousin Bob got a black belt at 14, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, you know what I mean? So you almost, I think the white to blue, the white is just a complete novice belt. It's like you're just surviving, essentially. Your blue belt is just, again, a beginner's belt. And so when you're a blue belt, it's like, okay, that's is what it is. You're beginning, you're starting to establish the moves and the movements. You can control someone slightly bigger that doesn't know what they're doing. A purple belt's intermediate. And I'll say intermediate to advanced. It depends on the person. And again, the difference between sort of hobbyists and competition belts and whatnot. And then the brown belt and black belt are the advanced belts, and essentially teaching, so you have got red belts and stuff as well, but essentially that's for people that have been doing it a lifetime, so the interesting thing, as much as you're focusing on belts now, when you get to black belt, that's it. You're not going to get another one.
Yeah.
So, like, what difference does it make? I know you're like, okay, well, I want to get that next belt. And it's nice to have that milestone and that recognition for sort of your knowledge and where you're at. But I suppose one of the biggest drop-off points is at blue belt. And I think because people are like, oh, okay, I want to get the blue. And they know it's taken so long, because on average, each belt takes 2 years to get to. So you're talking, so white to black, you're probably on average, your average person that trains 3-4 times a week, 10 years.
Yeah.
And when you say that, you're like, oh, it's such a long time, or, it's taken me all this time and so much to get to blue belt, and you've worked really hard to get it. You're so chuffed you've got your blue belt. Then the white belt comes in and taps you, and you're like, oh,
yeah,
I've just been tapped by the new person. I've been doing this for 2 years, and then it's like, oh, well, I'm blue belt, and it's going to take me so much longer to get to purple. And what have I got to do? It's almost like you should just treat each one as a new step of your journey, and it's realistically, as long as you keep turning up, eventually you'll be a black belt. And just don't put a time on it, because when you start, you don't put a time on it. It's like, I'm going to train and learn jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it's kind of exactly what James said. It's like, just don't think about it. It will, it'll happen when it happens. Yeah. But I don't know, maybe I'm just like too hard on myself, or I don't know what it is. I just feel like for how long I've been there are some things that I just know what to do in my head, but just don't end up. Yeah. It just doesn't end up working out when I roll.
Yeah, I get that. But then again, you've got to bear in mind that there's some things that you do know, but the other person's going to stop you doing it.
Yeah.
That's the joys of jiu-jitsu as well, And to be fair, like, you say, okay, I think I should be doing better than I am. Like, you can't really, you're putting a measure on time as well. Like, it's an amount of time you're on a mat. So realistically, you might get to black belt a lot quicker than 10 years. But realistically, if you're a hobbyist, you're going to train sort of 4 times a week in the evening for a couple of hours. If you think how many hours that is, you've got to condense and put that time in. So how well do you think you should be doing? You've been doing it for like a year and a half. Bear in mind, we've been closed for COVID.
Yeah.
So where do you think you should be on the measure of jiu-jitsu? A beginner.
Yeah.
If you're looking at a 10-year block from white to black.
Yeah.
I suppose the way to look at it is just, it's a lifestyle thing. You just build it into your life, same as shopping and eating and drinking and whatever else you're going to do, sleeping. If it's just part of your routine, it doesn't really matter. So again, going back to that question, like, where do you think you sit for the time you've been doing it? Like, should you be like a pro MMA fighter just because you've got a significant knowledge of jiu-jitsu? No, it's a year and a half, and out of that year and a half, you said yourself you've had breaks.
Yeah.
So essentially it's a time, you're looking at a period of time. So I think that's the thing.
I think like you said, it's a good milestone to have. And I think, as you shouldn't place all of your focus on it.
No.
And I think it's just natural.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah. And to be fair, it's like, it's brilliant to get awarded the next belt. Like, I've got my blue belt now. I've got my purple belt. I was like 5 years at blue belt, and it's like 5 years is a long time.
Yeah.
When you're training, and I was training all the time, and it's like, Claire's like, "Are you going to jiu-jitsu tonight?" Right? Yeah, just for an hour or two. I'll leave early if you want. Okay. Cool. Yeah, just get your thing done. You come home, like, oh, right. It's like, you know, and you just got to fit it in your life. It's just one of those things that it's just like, it's just, again, like a routine and a hobby. And it just, I think one of the good things with it is it's like, as much as it's a hobby, it does help in lots of ways as well. So it's just time, just sticking with it as a time thing instead of putting that. But of course, it's nice to get a blue belt or something, you know. So
I don't know. I was like, my mum hates that I do this, and
but why? Again, it's that perception of the UFC, or you'll come home with a little bruise or something.
Oh,
you know?
This one time. So when I first started, I just told my mum I was going to the gym. I didn't tell her what I was doing because I just knew the reaction. I was not dealing with it. But this one time I came home and, you know, I had like the white gi on and everything, and somebody busted my lip and I wiped it on my gi, and because it's white, it makes it look so much worse. So, hey mum, look at this. And she freaked out. She's like, I don't want you going there anymore. Yada, yada, yada. This was early days as well, but I think...
Because as much as the perceptions... And it's brilliant, you know, to have a mum that cares. And like, I think that's brilliant. It's awesome, you know. And I think one of the things... like sometimes I go home and I've got black eye and stuff as well. And you're like, oh, shit. And Claire's like, oh, you got another black eye. It's just, you know, it's a knock. But the perception that UFC gives, it's like... You know, you say you're doing jiu-jitsu and stuff, it's that thing. And your mum's probably like, oh, it's that cage fighting thing. He's been elbowed, he's been this. And you probably have been elbowed, but it's not intentional. It's an accident. It's just like a tiny, you know, it's like you get the same thing from other sports as well. So
yeah, exactly. I used to play like a bunch of team sports in high school. And I was massive into hockey. And I was going to start playing hockey, you know, once I got into university and stuff. It was like summer or like, you know, Sunday league. And the thing about jiu-jitsu that I like is if you don't show up for like a week or you're busy, that's on you.
Yeah.
But you don't have to, there's no team that relies on you to show up to training every week or show up. And I think for like a young adult that's going through like university and, you know, just adult life, or like learning how to deal with it, it's like the perfect sport.
Yeah, not only that, it's like this. It is flexible. You can work it around and stuff as well. And like you said, I think that's nice. There's no sort of real pressure apart from anyone, and including yourself. You know, it's supposed to be a fun thing. And every now and again, you see people and they look really sort of stressed and frustrated. I'm like, what's the matter? Oh, I've just been caught in this or that. And I'm like, so you learned something today.
Yeah.
Don't stress. It's good.
That's a lot easier said than done, though, because after I rolled with you last Thursday, I was just sitting on the mat. It's like, grab me the fuck this shit. I don't want to do this anymore.
Is this when you need me in the face as well?
No, that was before.
Okay, it's a different one.
To be fair, after that, I kind of deserved that last roll.
I was like, I'm going to get to see it next week. No, it happens. You know, you get good days and bad days with it. And I think if you have like a slightly tougher role with me, it's because, again, I'm just trying to push you. But what I'll always do is I'll always leave like a way out. Like some people are like, oh, I'm stuck in side control. And they're trying to turn the same way, and it's like trying to do the same thing. And I'm like, I've left like a big door for you to go a certain way and stuff, you know. But don't stress about it. Just enjoy it, and just again have it as part of your life, because it's just one of those things that it's a hobby, you know. But it's a hobby that can benefit you as well. It's all aspects of your life.
Have you had? I don't know how in depth we want to get into this, but have you had many people that have come and have stayed because of, you know, they've had mental health issues that that they are dealing with, and this is just like the best way to cope?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I've had in some ways is one of the reasons that I've had sort of stress and depression and one thing and another. You know, everyone's got their own dramas in life, and it's one of those that it can be used as a tool. If someone's got obviously serious problems and they need help, then that's a separate issue. But you do find there's a lot of people that do rely on it, you know, because it's that, going back to your point earlier, there's not many things or places that you can go and then you can train for a couple of hours and then actually you can forget everything that's going on. And for me, that is actually really good. And I think for some people tell you, some people make you aware of it. Some people have actually said, look, I really need this. And until I found this, I was suicidal and this, that, and the other. And it's tragic, really, you know, to sort of know that people struggle so much. But it's really nice as well to know that actually there's something that does help people as well. And You know, just especially during this thing with lockdown and all that sort of stuff as well. Like there's some people that have really, and myself included, you know, you really miss having that outlet, whether it be jiu-jitsu or running or whatever you do. But I do. Some people actually speak to me about it, and yeah, I mean, it's hard, you know, because you've still got to have your own life and your own balance. And again, you do get caught up sort of with people messaging you sometimes with their problems and stuff as well. And in the past, I have been guilty of messaging just because it's like this thing that you're sort of trying to help because someone's come to you with sort of problems. But actually, I've got my own life as well. So I've tried to not do that so much. But I do find it's quite upsetting, really, to sort of. I think just you hear of people's struggles and stuff as well, and you're like, "Fuck!" It's a shame, but there's nothing you can do. So I actually think it's really nice the people that come in and they just they look unhappy when they get there, but they leave with a smile on their face. Yeah. You know, and for me, and obviously we're having Claire sort of on the reception as well. She's real bubbly and stuff as well. And sometimes we've gone there, we've had shit with the kids or we've had a row or something, but you still turn up, you still make that effort because the people that are coming in, you've got people that are, you know, that's their thing, that's their place to go for that sort of release of stress and stuff as well. And it's actually quite rewarding. And, you know, on the flip side, you get some real nice comments saying, oh, it's such like a community feel, or we've sort of felt really settled because we've moved from overseas or whatever it may be. So it's actually really nice. And that's one of the better parts of doing it, you know, so it's good.
Do you find like just kind of developing off of that this whole community thing that you and Claire have created, I find that I guess for you it would be really helpful to have people like Andrew and Cody who can take class
100%.
when you're not
and even more with the kids classes, you know, because it's like the with the, don't get me wrong, I love teaching in general, but some of the, like, it's quite hard sometimes when you've had kids. Obviously we've got 4 kids and then you're teaching like 20 kids. It's actually I've been really fortunate to have had a group of people that have actually taught the kids classes with us.
Like that at other gyms, like, you know?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it is. I mean, I think by the most part you've got an instructor and assistant and that's it, whereas we've been quite fortunate, again, initially with Josh and the Bucklands and stuff as well, and then because we're fortunate enough to have families that train, I'm like, oh, do you want to just help out as well? So when I first started, it's just Ryan and I, you know, so, and I think he must have been, 14, 15 at the time. And it's just the 2 of us. And then I was just roping in parents that are there with their kids. And then before you know it, so now most classes we've got between sort of 3 and 6 adults that actually help with the kids. Yeah. And it just takes the pressure off, you know. Sometimes with my job, I can't always get there. And I'm like, Andrew, can you take this? And it's even better now because we've got Elliot come over as well.
Yeah, of course.
And so he's staying just in Howick and stuff. And I met him in the UK. And like I say, he's teaching classes. He offered to teach the advanced class on a Thursday. And it's nice because I don't now always have to do 6 days a week. Because sometimes you're like, actually, it's a lot. I can't be doing with it today. But we're really fortunate. And I think part of the culture of the club and the team, you know, it's like everyone's in like a group chat, both the kids and adults one. And we try and keep everyone involved. So it is like a community as well, which has been really good because by the flip side, we have got people that help out and stuff as well. By the same token, it's good.
Yeah, I mean, this entire like COVID thing has just messed up for a lot of people, but the real ones that have stayed through it, yeah, I don't know. That's, like I said at the beginning of this, that's the one reason why I've, you know, besides all the individual stuff of me training and getting better and all that stuff, the people that I've met through this that I wouldn't have met otherwise, it makes it so much easier to deal with the whippings.
Yeah, sure. And to be fair, it's like, it's really nice because I think the nature of the sport, because like you say, that ego thing of getting beaten by someone, it's quite nice because the people that don't stay generally, it's unfair to say they've got a chip on their shoulder, but what I'm saying is sometimes the ego is a factor. So what tends to happen a lot of the places that you go, any jiu-jitsu place for that matter, is you find the environment's generally quite nice because the people there don't really have much of an ego. You get the odd thing here and there, but by the most part, it creates a really nice culture because like you can't have an ego, because if you're going to get beaten by other people, and it builds up quite a good sort of relationship and stuff with people off the back of that. So yeah, it's cool.
Have you found ever, like, when you started the gym, like when I first came, I was like, I knew what I was like. I knew I was just going to get whooped, so I just kind of like let it happen. Have you ever had like somebody new come in? They're just like, I'm going to whoop everyone. I'm ready for this.
Yeah, you get it all the time, and it's like going back to the guy that I was saying about in the UK. He was like, he'd walk around like I'm invincible.
Yeah.
I used to love training with him, to be fair, and because it's just that approach that like I'm going to beat you. But I quite like that,
Yeah.
And what tends to happen, you get that with the guys that want to compete. Like they've got their mentality of like, actually, I'm not going to get beaten today. And it's like, and that's okay as well. At the end of the day, if they're going against someone, it's fine for them to try and beat the other person. But if they're going to do it sort of too much, they're only going to slow down their own learning, and the people that are getting beaten are going to catch them up. So I quite like that.
I think there's like a give and take for both of those. Like exactly, if you're naturally confident in this thing, I guess I could be wrong, but I guess the ego kind of comes into play later, definitely. Once you get tapped by somebody of a lower belt, or the new guy. But I think the thing that I'm kind of struggling with at the moment is I came in kind of timid, like knowing what I was going to get myself into. I feel like I'm at a point now where I think I need to be more confident and be more like, I'm not going to lose today. And that's just the mental shift that I'm still trying to deal with.
The interesting thing is, especially as you get more advanced, you don't notice it the earlier bouts, but when you've been doing it a long time, you can roll with someone and you can sort of nail their character, and it's not like their fake character. It's like, actually, this is the sort of person you are, because you can see straight away, like if they're competitive, if they're sort of tentative in their decisions, or like you say, if they're a bit defeatist or whatever else. You can actually see someone's personality really, really quickly when you're training with them, which I find is quite interesting. and when it comes to sort of training with people, the ones that are really competitive, quite often their ego gets hurt when they go to a competition, because the thing is, you become familiar with who you train with. So for example, I might roll with a purple belt in my club who starts to sort of know my game, so they can figure it out, and then they'll go against a purple belt from another club whose game they don't know, and they'll get an absolute whopping, because they don't know what they're doing. Whereas I could go against that person, it's like, it's fine, it's no problem, because you don't, it's just in terms of experience. But I do find like the actual, the ego thing does play a part, because the ones that are like, well, I'm not going to get beaten, I'm going to smash everyone up, they're normally the same ones that want to compete. And everyone loses, so anyone that hasn't lost, everyone loses in competition at some point, so.
That's interesting.
And Ryan, to be fair, funny enough, he's quite competitive. He doesn't like losing. So when it comes to competitions, he does extremely well because he's so technical, but he puts himself under a lot of pressure in that competitive environment. And, it's one of those where some people, they sort of thrive on that sort of that energy of sort of surroundings and stuff. And some people, they crumble under it a little bit as well. So it's quite an interesting thing. So.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like I'm like a competitive person. I've always had that, but for some reason it just comes out more with the singing thing. Maybe as I'm just better at it than jiu-jitsu. But
so how long have you been doing the singing
thing?
Exactly.
Yeah. But there's always, I don't know. I feel like I'm competitive, but the
So would you compete in jiu-jitsu?
Yeah. I don't know. Probably not.
Why?
Just I don't know. I feel like maybe I should be like a little bit more committed into it. Like I don't want to do. That's the thing. I don't want to do it if I know like the outcome is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, but you're almost preempting how you're going to do, because you got to bear in mind you're not going to be going against a black belt. You're going to be going against another white belt who's been doing it the same amount of time as you.
I don't know. Maybe it is just kind of like a defeatist mindset. I'm just like, I think I'm going to go in and get my ass whipped. Whereas, like with the singing thing, I just kind of know I'm going to go in, and if I don't do very well in terms of placing, whatever, I kind of know what to do, and I'll fix that. Like I've got the skills to fix it. Yeah,
this is the same principle. The thing is, the competitions that you go in, and like I've done it loads of times. I've gone into a competition. I've gone through the people I'm against. I'm like, okay, cool, I've won a medal. But then by the flip side, I've learned more from the ones that I've lost, because I'm like, actually, that's a hole in my game I need to fix.
Ah, there you go. I've had a bunch of people say to just compete, then you'll have a better understanding of where your level is. I don't know. I've just never had the. I kind of like coming to training and just chilling
if that's
out.
what you like, that's the thing. There's no pressure to compete. It's like it's one of those things. It's there if you want to, just to give you a gauge of where you're at. But who cares if you don't compete?
Have you competed much in NZ since you've been here?
3 times, I think. Is it 3 times? Yeah, I've done one no-gi competition, which I lost. So that was that last year before.
I think it was when I first started.
Yeah, maybe
I remember that.
February time last
year. Is it City Kickboxing, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So it's a no-gi one, and I was going into that training and stuff as well. A fair play, I got beaten on decision and stuff as well. I did go in with a little bit of a knee injury, and I couldn't train for about 3 weeks before. No excuses, I lost, but it was frustrating because that was one of those arranged fights, if you know what I mean. And when you sort of go in and you can't do your best, but still give it a good go. So I did that one. I lost that one, and I think that was last year, February. And I've done 2 of the national championships in the gi as well. So I did one at brown belt and one at black, and I won both of those. So
when did you become? I think. So you weren't black belt when you were in the UK. You came over here.
I came over here as a brown belt. I'd been a brown belt for about 2 or 3 years, and then I got awarded my black belt.
How does that work? If you're already...
Oh no, I was actually training with my instructor in a different country at the time, and then got awarded my black belt while I was away. And,
Gotcha.
So I didn't get awarded it in New Zealand, but I've been a black belt for 3 years, I think, 3 or 4. I think 4 years this year. 4 years. This
terribly
year,
long for like black belt standards.
Well,
right?
No, I suppose not. Yeah, so I mean, it's 16, 17 years, and I think 4 years this year I've been a black belt for. So,
you've done MMA? I think I've seen a fight on YouTube.
Yeah. So, but with MMA, like I say, it's one of those things. When I sort of competed with it, it's still quite a new sport. It wasn't like a career move as such, and it's like, and I ended up in a fight, and I broke my leg and tore my ACL in like the first 10 seconds of the fight. I trained my ass off this fight. Turned up in the day. There's a bit of a weight difference on it as well.
Who was heavier?
Yeah, he's heavier and stuff as well. Again, no excuse. I got beaten, and I'd hit this guy at the start. He went for a takedown as he fell, and the angle my leg went at, it just sort of popped sideways. So I had like a broken leg just below the knee, and I tore my ACL, and then like a muppet, like carried on fighting for another 10 minutes. So I'm like,
I guess there was no kind of like doctor stoppage kind of thing.
I mean, there should have been. I should have just given up in reflection, because I was quite a long time out after that. But it's just one of those things. I think the adrenaline of it. I think sort of everyone. Like, there's people there to watch and stuff as well, and there's a few thousand people there, and it's like I hadn't in my own mind, as much as I was injured, I wasn't unconscious, so it's like it's okay, I can carry on. And then afterwards it was like 8 months no training. I was like, this is shit. I don't want to go 8 months with not training, and I found that harder. And it's like, well, what are you going to do? You're going to pursue something that's sort of at the time not really a career move when you've got kids and family and all that sort of stuff, or you're gonna. So that's when I actually switched just to doing solely jiu-jitsu and not the MMA so much. And I still trained, I still went along, and I've done the sort of training behind the scenes, but I haven't competed since. It's just not been.
So how many fights did you have?
I only had the one. Really? That one, yeah. Apart from that, it was just literally training over the years doing the MMA. I literally went straight in, first fight as a semi-pro fight, broke my leg. And I was like, you know what? Actually, I don't want to be doing this.
Yeah.
So, because it's too much time off work as well. I think that was a key thing. I was itching to get back in after, and I couldn't. It's like I can't train, I can't do anything. Loved MMA. I'd sort of, but I took that fight really quick, probably too soon. I didn't have enough experience going into it. But I was like, right, this is what I want to do. This is me. I'm going to go straight in. And then with that, it's like, actually, I've got a wife and kids. I'm 27.
Yeah, it's not really worth it.
It's not. Why am I going to start like an MMA career at 20? It's just like, actually, it's not going to happen. I've gone in, I've lost. Not only have I lost, I've stopped myself from being able to train, and that was the most important thing, because at the time I did it for more like the mental health aspects with it as well. And then just switched. So, and I've done MMA for years. Like helped guys train for fights and stuff as well. But I've just not bothered competing again because it's like it's the time as well. You know, it's like for the guys that are sort of looking to do MMA, like you've got your cardio, you've got to eat right, you've got to get enough rest, you've got to do your striking, your wrestling, your grappling. You know, you've got so much to cover. And if you want to be successful, it's like it comes at a cost. It's a sacrifice. And like you look at the guys that like City Kickboxing and all of MMA and stuff, and you've got to take your hats off to them because you are giving up a big chunk of your time in your life. Whereas like with the jiu-jitsu guys, like you said yourself, you can come and go, you can pick and choose, you can still compete at a fairly reasonable level without having
to dedicate your entire life.
Yeah, and it's a massive commitment, you know, like the guys that fought in the UFC and stuff as well, you think hats off to them, do you know what I mean? Because they've worked their asses off, and win or lose, and you get all these like people that sit at home and they're like, oh, you should have done this, you should have done that. You don't realise how hard like as a sport, it's in my opinion one of the hardest sports you could do. And I think being like a family man myself, like I couldn't do it. And fair play, hats off. People that have made a career out of it, I think, yeah, brilliant, you know, but that's such a commitment. And it's like, well, actually, you've got to be a high level fighter to be sustainable. And I suppose I learned quite quickly that actually, if you get an injury, then where's your income? You know, it's like, especially starting out. So for me, it's like, okay, just do jiu-jitsu and stuff and still keep a balance with sort of wife and kids and work and everything else.
It's always like, I don't know, they just, like you said, you know, you watch on the couch, you watch at the bar, it's like, oh, you know,
just elbow him.
Yeah.
Just do this.
If I was there, I would have done this.
Just pick him up, and you're like, actually, do you know how hard it is to even pick someone up and put them if they know what they're doing?
It's like, you know, ever since I started jiu-jitsu, like, you know, you go to the bar or whatever to watch the fight, and the guy's like, oh, just stand up.
Yeah, get up, and you hear it, and you know, it's brilliant. Like back in the UK and stuff, quite often I'd sort of be cornering people and stuff as well. I had a close friend there, Matt, as well, that. We used to train together all the time and stuff in the snow, jumpers on, the whole lot, and we'd always rock up these sort of ringside and stuff, and you hear people they're like, oh, just punch him in the face and just do this and just pick him up, and you're like, you don't know how hard this is, man. Just let him do what he's doing, you know?
I honestly think some of the most physically and mentally taxing experience I've ever had in my life was the like 3 MMA sessions that we had. I was like, I am miserable. Like more so than the jiu-jitsu. Like it was on another level. I've never experienced anything like as intense as that. Like with the music thing, you know, when you're in a rehearsal with like, you know, a big name conductor, there's like a different pressure. But when and then somebody's like punching you in the stomach.
You can mentally break. That's the thing. Without a doubt, you can mentally break. And this is one of the things that makes some of the top fighters is the mindset they've got going into it as well, because you need to have that mindset. Because if you get caught heavy, and I've done it quite a lot of times just in sparring and stuff as well, and, you know, you get caught and it's like, you've got to keep going, because the second you stop, like that's it, the other person sees that break and you're done, you know. It's like real tough sport, mentally and physically, and it's just you've got to be a certain sort of person to pursue it as a career. So
it's the same thing like what we were saying with people it's been like, just stand up, or if I was there I would punch him in the face, or etc. I don't think people understand how much it hurts when they watch it on TV, because these professional guys take it so well. When they like, just getting punched in the stomach hurts a shitload. Imagine getting kicked and they just firm it. And I just don't understand.
Yeah, you do get used to it. Like again, like anything, you do get used to it with time and training and all that sort of stuff. So it's not too bad. I mean, I can remember there's a guy, Matt. He's a good friend of mine in the UK, and we used to, more so jiu-jitsu, used to train together. And we used to have like my garage that had like an open back, and like, it'd be snowing outside, be like inches of snow, and because there's only 2 sessions a week, we're there just with a gi on, jumper underneath, a pair of socks. And anyway, every now and again we'd be like, right, let's go and do like heavy MMA session, or someone's got a fight coming up, so you'd have a series of time doing this sparring. And I was probably only 2 or 3 years into training at the time, and I can remember I went in to punch him, and as I did, like I got a front kick to the stomach and I went down like a sack of shit. like literally, if you get a good hit in the stomach, it's like
It's
that's it.
Yeah.
You're done. So it's just one of those, not tense or anything, not connecting. Drop me. Yeah, it's the only time I've actually been dropped, and I was like, it's not
It's
not
just
nice.
so demoralizing because even the sound you make, like the
and you just curled up,
Yeah.
and the punches to the head after, they don't bother you. You're like, okay, just carry on. This is fine. It's my stomach that's hurting, and it's weird. Like even when you get in there, you actually do it with the sort of pressures and everything else of sort of like the audience and everything else. Like you don't feel the punches as much because of the adrenaline and stuff. It's normally like the next day, you're like, oh, actually, this is. The broken leg was definitely sore the next day. But it's just, I think the adrenaline and everything else, it does make it easier, but it does hurt. And it's like, I think people go into it and they see like the MMA fights on TV and they're like, oh, yeah, look at that. They look at that, must be really easy. And actually, it's not. It's really not. So, and I think people do forget as well. They see the end result of like, okay, I've got straight to UFC. Like a lot of the successful fighters, they've had 30 to 50 fights before they've even got there, So by the time they get there, it looks like nothing because they've already been there. They've already been through the sort of emotional side and the pressures. They've been beaten in most cases, and again, that's how you learn. You get to that level, and then they're sort of bouncing around with endless cardio and not minding getting hit. And it's because they've already done it for years, So
ever since I've just even dipped my toe into this thing, it's just completely changed the way that I look at the sport. Even things like boxing as well, just crazy.
Yeah, but one of the things I like about jiu-jitsu, I think for me, when you mention boxing, it's like you can actually, it's the confidence it gives you in a normal situation. If someone was a boxer against someone that was a jiu-jitsu guy, generally, like the jiu-jitsu guy would just take them down, close the distance, and they'd be okay. And I think it's nice to have that confidence off the back of that. And you see, it's frustrating when you see sort of people taking their kids along to karate, and probably I shouldn't really use. I'm like, shit, I'm going to get all the karate guys messaging me like, why are you slaying karate? I'm just saying, unless you're an extremely high level at that, like in terms of like your kids and stuff, if you want them to be able to look after themselves, jiu-jitsu is probably one of the better sports to do,
Yeah, also, I guess for me, like, definitely has changed my mindset on, what do I do? And if I ever am in the situation, like, especially with this new guy that's just come in, I was like, I'm just going to be real nice to him because he could kick my ass in the street. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody wants to do something, I'm just not, there's no ego there because you just don't know what the other guy knows. And plus, if somebody pulls out a knife or anything, it's kind of game over anyway.
Yeah. And especially this day and age, it's like I look back in the past and some of the situations and fights I've had, and I'm like looking back, you don't know what the other person knows, and it's like you could just be going up against someone that's literally going to whoop your ass. Yeah. And you look at them and they look like nothing, but they train, they're black belt or whatever. You look at Ryan, he's like probably 70, 75 kilograms at the minute. Probably doesn't look much yet. He's done competitions. He's beaten people that are like 128, twice his size. Yeah. So if you're in a street situation and someone then just approaches him and starts pushing him around, it's like,
game over.
Yeah, it's like, what? So, but again, it's stuff that you just learn, and I suppose you just...
Have you ever had to use... I'm sure you would have had to, like, jiu-jitsu and stuff. And
to be, yeah. I mean, I used to work on the doors and stuff as well in the UK. And when I was sort of a younger store manager in supermarkets in the UK, it's slightly different here. So, like, some of the... You're allowed to use reasonable force to remove people. So, and you would get like some of the heroin addicts and all that sort of stuff as well. And you don't want to risk having a needle pulled out on you. So you'd go pretty hard, pretty quickly just to get rid. But again, like looking back on it now, you are still putting yourself at risk, and it's just not worth it. You're better off just walking away and just phoning the police, let them deal with it and stuff as well. Cause that's what they play. But yeah, it does work in real life as well.
I think... for sure. But yeah, I don't know. I think for young men particularly, there's just this whole ego thing. It's like, look, I've started jiu-jitsu. Like, if somebody starts a fight with me, I'm gonna like just whoop them. It's like, because I was definitely like that too. Like, it was, especially just starting out. It's like, I know how to pass guard. Like, I had one guard pass lesson. And now I can be in a street fight. It's like, It's like, I'd rather just not. What's the point of being in a street fight?
There's no point. Look, realistically, it's again, I personally think it's nice to sort of know what you're doing, and I've had it quite a few times in the past where, again, working sort of in the retail industry and stuff, people can become aggressive with you, but at the same time, you're not necessarily too bothered about that scenario because you're like, okay, well, yeah, it's a dangerous situation, but my chances of survival are slightly higher than they would be if you just didn't do it.
Well, you have the self-defense thing instead of
exactly.
kind of going out and trying to hope that somebody comes and start something with you.
But I don't. To be fair, like I used to be, I used to be sort of more short-tempered, I suppose, and tolerance was a little bit less for some people. But I'm a bit older. I'm just like, can't be
Do you think the
bothered.
training's helped, or just the kind
I think
the immense age?
I think both. You know, I think having had so many sort of things in the past, altercations or whatever, and then having grown up and having done sort of 20 years of sort of MMA and jiu-jitsu and stuff like that as well, it's like, it's, you know, fighting's like a hobby. It's no different to going for a game of golf. So like if there's a fight, it's like it's just a fight, you know. So it's like it's no big deal. It's just like it's just like,
so I think some people would make a massive distinction between fighting and a game of golf.
They would, but essentially it's like the more time you do it, it
becomes normal.
Yeah, it's like going to it's like going to the gym. It's like going for a game of snooker or whatever you do, and it's just a sport. You know, for the guys that do fight, sort of doing the MMA and sort of cage fighting and whatnot, it's like, it's just a sport. They don't see it as like violence or anything else because it's just a hobby. It's a hobby that's evolved in something more than that, you know. So,
and a good hobby is for sure. Like I think I was talking to James about this the last time, and I've kind of said it here. Like I'm confident that I'm not naturally inclined to this kind of thing. Like I'm like pretty short tempered. Like anyway, like I'll snap at like a lot of things because I'm just kind of in my head a lot, and if something gets me out of that, I'll just kind of snap. But I'm not like a violent guy. I don't really like getting to like physical.
That's a good thing. That's perfect. Like, that's what you want.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
I'm just like but it's good to kind of get out of the. That's the thing. Like you have to get out of your comfort zone in one way, and this is, I think, one of the best ways for a lot of people to do it.
Yeah, 100%. I think the benefits of it, like the mental health stuff, and even in terms of like being with training as a family and doing something together and stuff. You know, it's like as much as it's sometimes a commitment when we're all going as a family, it's like actually it's a couple of hours off the Xbox. They're learning something. They're able to look after themselves, and you know, it's just, I think it's just a really good thing to have as part of your life. I don't even see it as a hobby anymore. And quite often I've thought, okay, I'm going to take up something else, I'm going to do something different, but I haven't really found anything yet that's like matches.
No.
You know,
no.
So
well, even, you know, I've only been doing it like a year and a half with COVID extracted, but like I said before, the gym, I used to go to the gym like a decent amount, but now I use that to supplement the jiu-jitsu. Because just doing the gym thing is just not enough anymore. Yeah,
I used to go to, again, before I started jiu-jitsu, I used to go to the gym quite a lot. And I still do go to the gym now. But like realistically, it's like initially you start to get bigger and it's like, how big do you want to go? You know, it's like, because you still got to maintain it. And then it's like, okay, I've got to a certain size. Or do I want to, you know, it's just, for me, it just doesn't really, you know, I'm not, as much as you can learn a lot of stuff about going to the gym, it just doesn't really interest me that much. You know, it's like I find myself going on the phone and just like, just do a few sets and just, you know, do a few work emails or whatever you're going to do and stuff. And it's like, well, at least with jiu-jitsu, you're actually learning something. You've got that whole thing where you just, everything else is gone. You've forgotten it.
Yeah, so it's more tangible in that way.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, for me, at least.
What do you think about the whole COVID thing and stuff as well? Do you think that'll be gone and done and dusted here next week with the masks and mandates and all that shit?
Who knows? I've just given up looking at it. I was like, I've taken on your philosophy on watching like the news and things like that. I just don't even look at it anymore. My life's become a lot less stressful. Yeah. Ever since I was like, I don't pay attention. Like if I'm the only place I really have to be kind of considerate of mask wearing really is, you know, at work or when I'm going into uni.
Yeah.
But usually when I'm in lessons and stuff, you can take masks off and
it's bizarre.
And
random situation.
I don't know. And you know, everyone has their really strong opinions about it. I don't think it's. I don't really go deep into that stuff. I don't like having discussions.
Seems bizarre though, doesn't it? How people can get so uptight about someone else's personal choice. From them, it's like, who cares? Just
like,
whatever you want to do.
I'm just going to stay. I'm probably going to stay at home anyway. So do your thing. But I think the last time we went into lockdown was the worst one for me in a lot of ways, but particularly with jiu-jitsu, because I just felt I was like coming to a stage where I was like, you know what, this is okay now. And then as soon as that happened, literally the next day, went in. But there would have been a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a shame though, because a lot of people, like I say, have not. They're still not going out. They're still just not doing day-to-day stuff, whether it be jiu-jitsu or anything else, because it's like, and I think a lot of it is a media thing, just turn off TV. So it's like,
I had my first experience with a lady at work. Is that usually people are kind of cool with the social distancing thing, like it's a rule, but people are kind of more liberal about it with the masks and the rat test and all that, and vaccines and stuff. Now people don't really care, but this one lady was like, please stay 2 meters away from me. I was like, okay, cool. This is what we're doing, I guess.
See if she's coming for a trial at jiu-jitsu.
This blows some of my friends' minds that jiu-jitsu is like still a thing. And when I explain to them what it is, they're like, how is this going on with COVID? I don't know.
So the word
I just don't think about it.
Like, you forget when you start as well, like, it's like other people's sweat, like the bad stuff of jiu-jitsu. Do you know what I mean? After a while you don't care, but like, you're literally here to someone, aren't you? It's like, you are pretty close. But
I remember I came home from a training session one time and we had like family friends over and they came to give me a hug. I was like, look, I don't know whose sweat is on me.
Sweat, hair, like...
That's all like, oh god, I never really thought about it. I love it, and I didn't really think about it with COVID either. I just like going. And to be honest, you said this when we were back at the old gym, and it's kind of stayed in my mind because it's so true. You're way more likely of getting COVID at like a retail store or the supermarket. And to be honest, the gym's way cleaner than a lot of those places.
You have to be really clean. I mean, to be fair, that's the thing. We've always like prided ourselves. We get the Dettol just kills everything, because I'd rather get COVID than I would like ringworm or staph. Or,
have to be on antibiotics and the whole.
You can pick up some infections.
Yeah.
You don't generally because typically you shower before you shower after, whatever, and it's like the mats are clean. It's like a really clean environment, and then I have been to a couple of gyms in the past, and you're like, this has not been cleaned ever. So it's like, I don't know if I want to roll here, to be fair. But again, we pride ourselves on keeping it quite nice and clean and stuff.
I would just assume that this was like a regular kind of...
it is, but to be fair, it is by the most part. You do come across the odd place and you're like,
this is a bit weird.
This is like several people's hair on this floor.
You can get Dettol from bulk. It's not that expensive.
So I don't fancy staph infections, thank you.
No, but it looks like... it does look like we're kind of coming to the end of it.
Yeah, no worries, man.
No. I mean, with the COVID thing, but...
Oh, no, I thought you cut me off. I'm I'm done. I'm like, out the door.
But look, I don't know what's going to happen with World War III. I don't know how much, my 2 stripes on the wipeout is going to help me with getting drafted.
Survival of the fittest with black belts. Black belts coming off and loading up for Putin
so
coming over.
Blue belts putting it on, like the hazmat suits once the nukes start coming.
See how the judo goes with Putin and all that. We're just going to press a button and that's it, we're gone.
But look, we've been going for, I think, like an hour and a half or something. Plug the club. Plug the club.
Plug the club. Plug the club. I've got to plug the club. Yeah. Just before and plug the club, just wanted to say, just sort of appreciate everyone coming along. Really, it's one of those things that we've sort of created this sort of culture and stuff with the club, and the core guys that are there sort of since day one or their day one. Do you know what I mean? That's what makes the club what it is. And if anyone wants to come along and give it a go, see what it's about. It's just at Bucklands Beach, just on Pakuranga Plaza. So yeah,
Bucklands Beach, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA. One of the best decisions I've ever made. If you're a music person listening, and a lot of you guys know how important this is to me. But yeah, thank you so much for doing this, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and I'm sure you'll see James later on this evening trying to smash you up as usual.
Yeah.
Shout out to everyone at the club and to the missus for sort of helping us with it and running it and whatnot as well. So that's good.
Yeah. Right. Cheers.
Cool. Nice
Thanks
fun.
for listening, guys. Bye.